Turn my mic up. Cause I'm so scared. They got you straight shook, make you second guess, make you take a second look. If you listen to this, then you should have read my other book. You into spooky stuff, but you don't like scary stories? I'm paying to recruit like a mom named Lori. It's like Boy Meets World and I play Corey. Episode 15, telling ghost stories. Tony Merkel in this bitch and he ain't even worried. Straight shook. Straight shook. Straight shook. Look, I told you I was gonna come through with that fire, so here it is. Straight Shook. It's that series leading up to Halloween. We're gonna have episode after episode of that spooky, ooky, creepy woo-woo stuff. Get you all creeped out, you know what I'm saying? But before we get all creeped out, I'm gonna let y'all know right now, this is not the full interview with Tony, nor will it be. You can only get that if you go to patreon.com/erhunter and pledge at least $5. That's called Sakers, that tier program. I'm breaking that down. You're going to get exclusive content, a free copy of my book, and you can see the full-length interview I did with Tony. There you go. So this was brought to you by yours truly, ER Hunter, God Sent Dog, Chasing God Alcoholically. They're available on Amazon, but check me out on patreon.com. In any case, let's get into it. This episode, we got Tony Merkel. This is actually just the front part of our interview, and we had a very long discussion about a lot of stuff. So I'm pretty stoked and I'm honored that he was willing to do that. What I'm going to do is actually break this series up into maybe 2 or 3 parts, this interview I did with Tony, and then some of it I'm only going to leave reserved for Patreon members, Sakers, those rhetorical Sakers that are going to show some love, because he offered some good mentorship points as far as developing as an entrepreneur, but at the same time, like entrepreneuring in podcast land, at the same time, maintaining life. And it was just stuff I needed to hear. And so if I needed to hear it, someone out there probably needs to hear it too. And Tony just don't give a fuck. And so... yeah, I'm stoked to show you guys the interview, and we're going to close up the episode with some family lore of mine. I'm not just going to leave you hanging with that little tidbit, that little tease. I'm not going to edge you along like that for too long. I'm going to interview my aunt and maybe my grandmother to find out about these family ghost stories, you know, what I got raised with. Like, let me introduce you all to my introduction to the paranormal. And just that spiritual side, you know, beyond the veil type stuff. Because if it doesn't come from family and we don't experience it on our own, then where do you get it from, you know? And most of the time, it's those closest to you that are raising you. You know, that's where our cultures are born. So I'm stoked to find out from Baby Khymn what her experience was like when she was young and traveling. She said she has encountered an ancestor of ours. So I'll let her be the one to tell. But before that, we're going to have Tony Merkel.
And it's funny because we talk about like Beyonce and Jay-Z on your show and kind of like the Satanist aspect of the music. One of my top episodes I did before I interviewed with you is just a breakdown when Beyonce's concert was live at Coachella. And people love that episode. I think people think I'm like diehard Beehive, like all Illuminati'd out type thing. I don't know. But that
should be.
Just a pyramid tattoo right here on my wrist.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen people like that. I've met people like that, Tony.
Well, I mean, it's a reality to this world that we live in, man. And so, I mean, these things are real, and people don't want to, I don't know, admit that they're real or think that they could be possibly real. They want to live in a bubble, but the bubble's slowly popping. It's not one of those fast explosions, but the bubble is definitely slowly popping for people. and they're realizing. I mean, just look at the Epstein stuff. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
People who aren't conspiracy theorists think that that's fishy with what's going on with Epstein. Like, it's just everybody's questioning it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit more transparency, I think, and it's calling the faces out of the shadows type deal. But
yeah,
in any case, that's typical, Tony Merkel talk. Welcome to the Rhetorical Sake, and thank you so much for doing this. I think you're going to be popping off my series of scary stories where I delve more into what we talked about on your show, The Confessionals. So thank you for taking the time to do this. I just want to dive right in and find out, is there any paranormal or spooky stuff that's happened to you recently, maybe in the last month or two, that you could talk about?
I'm usually the guy that doesn't have paranormal experiences, and believe it or not,
No.
but I actually do have a couple of things that happened to me the past couple months. Yeah, nothing too crazy, but so I guess I'll start with the one that I find less interesting. I don't know if other people would or not, but so people might be familiar with the asylum called Pennhurst. Pennhurst Asylum is here in Pennsylvania. It's 15 minutes from where I live in Spring City, Pennsylvania. And basically, Pennhurst was a place where families would bring their mostly children that were mentally handicapped back in the day and to live because they didn't medically know how to handle these people. And so they would drop them off at this place. And Pennhurst, it was basically you drop your family member off there and you pretty much forget about them. Sometimes people would come visit and stuff, but there was a lot of times people would go 20 years without seeing any family. So basically the people that you're living with at Pennhurst became family. And they actually had their own community where they had their own currency. They had their own banks. They had everything. Like it was this little community out in the woods that, it just, it was a bad situation. And the bad situation got worse when it was underfunded. And so there's a lot of neglect with these people, these patients. They were over capacity. I think they were set to do about 1,800 patients max capacity, and they were sitting at about 2,500 back in the 60s. Wow. And they didn't have one gynecologist. And so obviously with the female patients, that was a big problem. They were very understaffed. And so lots of abuses. Then you had the patients that were more adults that were patients there, and they would physically abuse the children, either physically, sexually. So the place is haunted. And
sure. Yeah.
So when I used to live in Spring City, Pennsylvania, and that was when I first got married, and me and my wife, we never snuck in there when the place was shut down because I just didn't want to get in trouble and get arrested or something. I had a job and I could barely pay my bills and all that stuff.
For sure.
But recently, in the past few years, they've opened up Pennhurst to the public for tours, and they do like ghost hunts, and Halloween they'll do like haunted tours and things like that. And recently they did Paracon, like about a month ago, they did Paracon there. Right. And they had like Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters come out and a bunch of different celebrities. And I went there as a vendor. I had a vendor's table. And so I had somebody watching my table, and me and my wife and my son went around looking at these different buildings. And I guess one of the most haunted buildings there is the Mayflower. And we go in the Mayflower, we're walking around, and it's like what you would typically see on like Google images of like a haunted asylum. Like it looks like that. I mean, it's your typical creepy place. And my son's just running around. He's a year and a half old, and he's just running around, just having a great time, splashing in puddles because of leaky roofs, and there's pentagrams on the wall because there's graffiti everywhere. Somebody graffitied an Anubis on the wall, and I find it interesting because people that generally just are into these, let's go get it creeped out a little bit, but they don't really look into things like that. Right, like they have no idea what an Anubis is. They're just like, hey, I recognize that from, some Disney movie, but yeah. It has a lot of, evil ties to. Anyways, so we're walking around and we're upstairs, and my son comes over to me and he wants me to pick him up. And so I pick him up and I start walking over to a window to look out the window. And as I took a couple steps, I'm in the middle of the floor, like there's nothing around me, like it's an empty room, and I feel something touched the back of my leg, like my Achilles heel. It felt like somebody just like softly whisked their fingers over my Achilles heel.
Mm-mm.
And I'm like, I looked down, I'm like, what is that? And I thought, you know, I don't know what I thought. I was just like, something just touched me. You know, it didn't
Yeah.
freak me out though. I was just like, huh, you know. And I tried recreating it, and I couldn't. You know, it just something touched me. And the only thing I can think is that if maybe I picked my son up and dirt off the back of his shoe fell down and touched the hair on my leg and felt like something touched me.
Okay, yeah, sure. In this really creepy building.
Yeah.
Well, do
Yeah.
you I'm on I I know what it's like to kind of have to pick up a kid all the time. Like I helped raise my younger cousin, so I get where you're at with that toddler phase, and it's like they can walk and run around, but you're constantly kind of treading behind them. So you're pretty active when you're holding a toddler or a kid. I mean, then congrats on the growing family. But so you would know if somebody was reaching for your leg. Do you think like honestly it was dirt or maybe something actually happened?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm the guy that I wanna have an explanation. Like, so the only explanation I can think of is that the kid had dirt because it was a dirty floor, that the kid had dirt on the bottom of his shoe and it fell off when I picked him up. And, you know, because he's on my hip. So one of his legs, it was his right leg, was technically behind my body. And so maybe some dirt fell off the bottom, caught hair on my back of my leg, and felt like somebody was just wisping their fingers across my leg, or it was a ghost. You know, so I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I don't know what else to say. But it it was a paranormal experience. It could have been, or it could have been just something, you know, simple like that. But interesting nonetheless. But I did have something else happen in my house, and this is something that's been happening apparently
okay.
before I even moved into the house.
Huh.
And
How'd you learn about that?
well, because it's been following us apparently.
Oh, it happened to you guys before.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it wasn't from somebody that lived there before.
No.
It's
No.
interesting. And I've
yeah.
heard stuff on your show before, so I'm very interested in finding out like what exactly you're referencing.
Well, I've never shared this on my show. Yes.
Yes is right. Oh man, Tony just came through with some fire. Look, I was not expecting him to actually account an actual like paranormal ghost story, maybe like Sasquatch or something. So that's lit, because that's right up my alley. So oh man, this is awesome. Look, stay tuned. I got my aunt Baby Khymn coming up, and she's gonna break down a little ghost story we have running in my family. But go to patreon.com/erhunter. Give us $5 and you can see this full interview I do with Tony. I'll be releasing the rest of it throughout the remainder of the Str8 Spooked, or Str8 Shk, excuse me, y'all. This is new to me, it's just as much as it's new to you. The Str8 Shk series. So as we lead up to Halloween, ghost story after ghost story after UFO story, ho. Here we go.
I was like, "Oh, for real? We had a $2,000 day yesterday." He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, how much a microwave costs?"
Exactly.
He was
Exactly.
like,
How about that?
Okay, Eric." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
No,
you
I'm
come
just
over
saying.
here." Yeah. It's nah. So,
And you don't even have to buy an industrial size one. Just get one for the meantime. A $50 microwave.
Kim, that's all we got now. It's not like, I mean, they're literally like the size that I have here, y'all have, like, and it's
Oh, they
just two
took
of them. But every
took-
sandwich we get, there's only like 5 cold sandwiches. So you're always
Uh-huh.
putting the meat in the microwave, and you have to like dig your nail on the
Oh,
top of
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
No, it's just, nah, I'm
So
over
if
it.
that one breaks, then what? You close the shop down?
Right. But it's just, it's faulty equipment. That's what I told the other girl, the manager. I was like, it's faulty equipment.
That's exactly what it
I
is.
said, let me get shocked up in this bitch. I'm gonna fall out on the floor.
All day and wait for somebody to come pick me up.
Anyway, but I was asking Grammy, like, because I know she grew up in Louisiana, or no, like, you know, Louie and Gwen and them were in Louisiana for a little bit. But you had that story where you were like 19 or something, and you were traveling, or what happened? Wait,
Well,
hang on one
well,
second.
okay.
Okay. Anyway, go for it.
I was traveling to Atlanta from California, and I was waiting at the
Can you
bus.
turn down
Well,
that TV in the back? Sorry.
yeah,
Just
when
because
I
it.
was when I got off the bus I was at the Greyhound bus station. So I got off the bus and I was walking in the parking lot. It was a really big parking lot, and it was about midnight. And the cars that were parked there were kind of sparse, so there was nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So while I was walking through the parking lot, I saw this older guy. He was a tall, black guy. He was, good-looking older guy. He was sweeping up the parking lot.
And where was this again?
This was in Atlanta
Oh,
at
okay.
one of the Greyhound bus stations.
Okay.
And he stopped me and he said hi and he was like, where are you from? And I said, Oceanside. It's in California. He said, no, like where is maybe your grandmother from? And I said, well, one's from Sylacauga, Alabama, and the other one's from Pineville, Louisiana. And he said, that's the one I'm talking about, the one in Pineville. And I just kind of looked at him crazy, and he said, yeah, they used to call her Little Bit. She had a really, really skinny waist, and she could dance really good. And I was like, okay. And he said, you look just like one of your aunts that used to be in the Army, because I remember she would come home and walk down the street, and she'd have a big sea bag on her back, just like you have right now. So I'm like, okay, and I had no idea who this guy
One
was.
of your aunts or your uncles?
One of my aunts. It was
Oh,
it was
okay.
a female, yeah. And so I dropped something and I turned around to pick it up. And when I stood back up to turn back around to say something to him to ask him what his name was, he was gone.
Yeah.
And he just like literally disappeared into thin air. And I was like, hello, hello, sir, and I never seen him again. So when I got home that night, it was like midnight in Atlanta, and so it was like 9 o'clock in California. And I called my grandmother, and I was like, explaining everything to her. And she's kind of started laughing, and I was like, that's not funny. It's kind of weird because there was literally nowhere for him to hide. I mean, it was a huge parking lot, and there were maybe like 6 or 7 cars in there.
Did he have like a broom or something, or he just
Yeah,
looked like
he
a
had a
janitor?
broom. No, he had a broom. He had a dustpan, and he was just kind of like sweeping up stuff.
Yeah.
Like walking through the parking lot, sweeping up stuff. If you've seen anything. And so when I told her the story, she just kind of laughed at me, and I was like, "That's kind of not funny. Why are you laughing?" And she's like, "Oh, that was so and so," and she knew exactly who he was. And I was like, "Okay, but how did he know who I was?" And she said, "Well,
Right.
probably because he thinks that you look just like me." But if I'm not mistaken, she said, "But that guy's been dead." And I was like, "Wait." So at that point, I was just like, "Okay." And I'm like, never. And I remember exactly what the guy looked like. He was really tall. He's probably about like 6'4". He was really thin. He had like gray hair on his face, and he was like a really good looking older guy. And he was just,
Yeah.
sweeping up the parking lot, minding his business, and stopped me. And I was just like, oh my God. So it was just kind of weird. You know
Yeah,
what I
and
mean?
she said it was probably somebody that she had known,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but
She
not
said
in our family.
no. She just said it was somebody that she knew from Louisiana that grew up around like the street because where
Right.
we in Louisiana, our family's really big, and there's a street called Larry Street, and at the end of Larry Street, there's a big white church where everybody used to go to. And
Mhm.
when he was saying that, I reminded him of one of my aunts coming home from the army. She was saying that, yeah, when she used to come down the street, down Larry Street, we would always see her with her big army tea bag on her back. So that's probably why you reminded him of her.
I wonder which aunt that
I
was,
have
because I
no idea.
never knew.
Yeah, like she told me names, like she said that guy's name and everything, and she said, "Oh, that was probably whatever his name was," and I don't remember his name was, but I was just like freaked out because when she started laughing, it was kind of like it was
Yeah,
sinister, but it was like that's not funny. That guy just
and
disappeared into thin air.
you gotta be to make Willie Mae Moore laugh, to say something funny.
Exactly, exactly.
No, but I didn't know. It looked like because I went to see that movie Hustlers last night with my buddy,
Mhm.
with J Lo and Cardi B and Lizzo, where they're
Yeah.
strippers or whatever. But they had the previews before, and they had that Harriet Tubman movie coming out,
Oh.
and it looks good, girl. I was about to start crying during the preview, but
Uh-huh.
I was with my white boy Alan, and so I leaned over because there was an empty seat in between us. Because in the movie they show her talking to her brother, and he's got a huge scar on his face. But I
Uh-huh.
remember doing my book report at high scale school in 5th grade, and my mom had us looking like the boo boo the fool. Because Kim, I did this book report, and you had to come in as a character from the book report. So I
Uh-huh.
came in as Harriet Tubman's uncle.
Okay.
So I dressed up like a slave
Right.
at high scale school to go to this presentation. I'm walking around like Harriet Tubman's uncle. So
Right.
I get
And
up
everybody
there,
else looks like what? A president?
yeah, or whatever, but you can't have the only black kid in the class
Exactly.
dressed like a dang slave. Like,
Okay, put me on the cocktail while you at it.
right. But in the book, it talks about how when she first started running, she was always a runner. They threw something at her and it gave her a scar on her face. So I
Oh,
leaned over to Alan during the preview just so I would not get emotional during it. And I was like, this is not accurate because actually it's her that has a scar on her face. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, yeah, because she started running and they threw something at her and they got her. And so I just leaned back in my seat and I looked back and Alan was to himself, like laughing so hard, Kim. And he was like, it was just the way you said it. You was like, they threw something and they got her.
right.
But I was
It's
like,
scar
no,
for life.
the movie is not accurate because actually Harriet Tubman is the one that had the scar on her face, from what I remember. But I guess she was in the Union Army because at the end of the preview it shows her like fighting in the Civil War. I was like, dang, okay.
Yeah,
But
she was. I was just reading something about that too. I can't remember. One of the kids had to do a report on that, and I didn't know that. That was pretty interesting to me too.
yeah, I was like, that's badass.
Yeah.
And you know that one of the girls I live with in Italy, she went to Pepperdine or whatever. She used to live in a house in Pennsylvania that was like a landmark for the runner or the Underground Railroad, I
Uh huh.
guess. So it was one of the stopping points before they got to Canada.
Oh wow.
And but she said in like the house you could hear chains rattling, like
That's
shackles. Yeah, and they were like hidden doors and stuff that were just closed off, I guess, from where they would keep hidden slaves. But my friend, I told, they were like, well, why, if they were free, like running, why would they have shackles on? And I was
well, it
like,
was probably a safe house where they were because there were a lot of white people that would take in the slaves, and when people would come looking for them, they would hide them in those hidden doors. So that's probably what it was. It's probably a safe house.
right. But my friend was like, well, why would they be wearing chains in a
They
safe?
probably couldn't get them off.
True, I guess. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. True, true. But anywho, yeah. Movie looks good. Hustlers was all right. I
Well,
mean,
I heard. Well, one of my friends on Facebook actually talked about that movie. He said that movie was kind of sucked, and he said it's not even worth watching it on
yeah,
Redbox. It wasn't
it's
that good.
not good. It's not
Oh,
good.
and they
Like,
were saying that Jennifer Lopez was like all Oscar worthy in it and everything.
she's good. She's the only reason to see the movie. I mean, her acting is great in it. I mean,
Oh,
actually, she carries the whole thing is the problem. But it could have been a really good movie, like really badass. But the stripping is only at like the first 15 minutes of the movie, and me and Alan were like, okay, I feel like I'm at the strip club already. So,
uh-huh.
and then the rest of the movie, you could tell it was kind of like a chick flick, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
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 So,
Well, that's crazy. Yeah, because that's what my friend said. He's like, don't even waste your time. It's not even, it's just horrible.
girl, and Cardi B, you can't even
Mhm.
understand what she's saying. Like I
Oh, really?
understand, and I can understand her on Love and Hip Hop. So I'm like, I know you know how to speak English, but I could
Yeah.
not. Her accent, she just sounds so. It's not even New York. It's just too much. It was like
Well,
you
that's
missed
what
the whole
Jennifer
line.
Lopez was saying. That's what she was saying. She said when she called her to do the movie, she said, and I wanted her to act like a certain, like the way that she used to act when she was on Love and Hip Hop, basically. And she said, oh yeah, I can do that, you know. But like you said, sometimes that's a bit much.
No, I couldn't even understand what she said. Like I
Oh
missed the
wow.
whole lines. Yeah. So
She wasn't in the movie a lot.
in the beginning, and that's
Oh,
the
okay.
it was really bad writing because it was like the characters they introduced you to, they didn't develop enough, and like the girl from Aquila and the Bee, like she's
Oh
in it,
yeah.
and I was like, okay, like this is a risque role for her, but it really wasn't a challenging role for her. Like it just kind of had her looking like she
Well, did you
twerked a
see
little
her in?
bit.
Did you see her in on Empire? Was it Empire? Yeah, I
No,
think it was
girl,
Empire.
I
Yeah,
haven't watched Empire since season 2.
yeah. Well, she was kind of that in that movie too. I think it
Yeah,
was Empire. I can't remember what it was. One of those shows. No, it was Star. I'm lying. It was Star. Yeah,
Star.
the
Oh,
show.
okay, okay. No, I haven't seen that. Yeah, I haven't kept up with that one because that's the spinoff of Empire.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
somewhat. Yeah,
Anywho.
but it was kind of pretty much the same thing. So I could totally see that happening.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go see it, but now I'm kind of like, if it's not good, if it's not worth it, I ain't gonna waste my time.
I mean, it's okay, but it's just a lot. I think it could have been done on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's how a lot
$20.
of stuff is these days. Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And there you have it. A lot of stuff can be done on Netflix these days, but you know, Jennifer Lopez's name is in it, so that's probably why it got what it got.
Right. I mean, she did really well. Like it was like a Demi Moore like striptease moment for her because I mean, it was like a good scene, but it was like that was it. Like that was the movie. Like okay, and then the rest of the movie just dragged on too long. Like the writing wasn't good.
Oh,
And yeah, it could have been a good movie, but it just the writing sucked.
oh, that sounds boring.
Yeah, but who am I? The guy that got kicked out.
All right.
So I digress.
Anyway, I am straight shook to learn that there might be some type of ghost following my family. Huh? What's all that about? He ain't coming up in here tonight, that's for sure. Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was the first episode of my series, Str8 Shk, on the Rhetorical Sake podcast. Like I said before, if you want more of this, show some love. Patreon.com/erhunter. I authored God Sent Dog and Chasing God Alcoholically. If you donate at least $5, I will send you a free copy of Chasing God Alcoholically. So how about that? Also, Tony Merkel's coming up on the next episode of Str8 Shk. So I'll layer this up with a little preview of that and maybe a little spooky ghost story from my grandmother I got from speaking with her. Keeping it real once again. I'm so glad you guys joined me. Check me out. erhunter.live. That's erhunter.live. Email me if you want to talk, if you want to chop it up, give some feedback on the show. Earth, ERTH, that's Earth without the A, at erhunter.live, erhunter.live. Love you guys. Stay blessed, stay encouraged, stay anointed, because Lord Jesus, these creepy things are out there. Oh, I love this. All right. Thanks, you guys. Peace.
So, all right. Well, we used to live in Spring City, Pennsylvania, and we lived in an apartment complex. And in that apartment complex, this is before I had my podcast. This is before I looked into paranormal stuff. Nothing. Like I was just a dude trying to get through life. And
Right.
I'm in my apartment, and I would always sit in the same chair in my living room to watch TV. And the way the room was set up was like when I'm sitting in the chair, I could actually look down the hallway just like on an angle, though I couldn't see directly down the hallway, but I
Okay.
could see a good distance down the hallway before my visual got cut off from the wall. And
Right.
in the hallway, we had pictures hanging in the hallway of my wife's movie posters. Like she did a lot of theater acting and stuff, and so
Okay.
she would put her theater posters, frame them, and put them in the hallway. And so I would consistently, all the time, and I don't think my wife has ever seen anything, but for me, it was all the time. I'd be sitting in the chair watching TV, and out of my peripheral, I could see shadow walking from my bedroom into the bathroom, and I would see the reflection in the glass of the pictures in the hallway.